All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the fourth way session. I am just going to switch this window over here and all right. Welcome. I invite you guys, if you're able, to turn your camera. Otherwise, I will go from here and look at me and Danielle's lovely faces. As we come in, I want to just give a few minutes for people to trickle in. Probably just 5-10 minutes max. As you do that, I want to invite us all to bring your awareness into where you are arriving from. Physically, you may just gotten out of bed or come from another room. You may be moving from another headspace. Maybe you're just jumping over from Mari's, another popular session from her with her astrology one, I believe. Maybe you're bringing in the emotional currents from, no, I need to remember to hit all these buttons. Okay, is there a way to auto and
No, but if you make me co-host, I can help with some of that.
thank you very much. Perfect. Yeah, here we go. Welcome. I'm just inviting us all into the space, getting in touch with the liminality of this transition period as we move out of wherever we were into wherever we are soon to be. I just invited us to reflect on where we physically moved out of. We may have moved from another headspace. We may be carrying emotional currents from where we just were. Maybe you are really upbeat and excited for this session. I hope so. Maybe you are not so excited. Maybe you just got a phone call with some bad news and you are feeling angry or grief. And it's good to, wherever you're coming from, just allow space for that internal flow to move, to breathe, to speak to you. As you extend your awareness back where you're coming from into your memory, you can also extend it forward into your imagination. Where are you going? Are you running errands later today? Do you have other sessions you're excited for? And as you rest in that tension, allow your focus to converge on the liminal space between where we're going and where we're coming from. Where is that space between? Where is that now? If you like, you can join me in 3 mindful deep breaths, and I will share a story of the fourth way to answer that question. The script says 1 breath, but I need 3 breaths. Listening to my body, trying. So we are here as part of Limicon, as part of this focal point for this broader liminal web that is founded on liminality itself as a topic of this space between different intellectual currents, different focuses, different foci. It's also a space between temporal cultures. We're moving out of an age into some other age, and the liminal web has emerged as one of the cohesive narratives around that navigation, that map drawing. There are thinkers spanning far into our past that we are in conversation with, seeking their wisdom as we try to solve these problems that are never before seen, yet also are expressions of problems that are eternally recurrent. These liminal spaces are the ways that we shift things that aren't working for us any longer, the way that we ideate new solutions to these problems. We need these liminal spaces to avoid stagnation and decay. But if we need liminal spaces so much, why are they so scary? Why are people so averse to stepping into that unknown? It's chiefly genuinely dangerous to let go of control. You are surrendering to an experience that you may not like, or more than just not liking it, it may hurt you, it may kill you. And there are real ways that trying to keep your feet planted on the ground is a very stabilizing, self-loving action. But you can only plant your foot on firm ground after removing it. You can only, if you never step into that unbalanced state, that if you don't sustain that free fall, you will never move anywhere. We need to be comfortable entering mystery, to surrendering to these moments of, oh, as I fall forward, oh, as I fall forward again, as we take these like learning to walk these steps into the future. The fourth way is a emergent response to these sorts of struggles. About a century old, it is a psychotechnology to consciously cultivate our capacity to engage this liminality for our growth and the growth of humanity as a whole, to develop the courage to step into that mystery and have faith that we will be received, and that whatever the outcome is was correct, that just like beautifully at the end of the notes that are automatically sent out to anyone who books a session, the final tagline is something along the lines of, whenever it starts is the right time, whenever it ends is it's over, whenever whoever shows up is the right people, whatever happens is the best thing. The fourth way is best understood as an expression of a specific man. Gurdjieff, G.I. Gurdjieff, was a wandering mystic, an esotericist who was born in the late 1800s. He traveled from Egypt across the Silk Road to India, seeking hidden truths, trying to acquaint himself with different wisdom traditions. He, in his travels, he discriminates three primary approaches to awakening, to stepping into that liminality with open eyes, with intention. He discriminates them as the way of the fakir, which is a mendicant, a beggar who renounces earthly attachments, who lives a very ascetic life. You know, you may have seen the trope of someone who, like the guru who sleeps on a bed of nails, who rests in one position for days on end. These are ways of gaining control over the body to approach, to acquaint oneself with its demands, to approach awakening through the body. In addition to the way of the fakir, he discriminates the way of the monk. You can imagine like a Christian monastic who is sort of celibate. He is avoiding the passions. He is subjecting his will to God's will. He is chasing virtue. He is approaching awakening through the heart. There is a third way he discriminates, the way of the yogi. And you see this someone who is cultivating their mind, who is quieting the monkey mind, who is releasing conceptualization. You might imagine like a Zen master. Gurdjieff is fundamentally a bricoleur, someone who combines different traditions into like a patchwork tapestry. He discriminates these three ways, and he is a born integral thinker, you could say. He creates a fourth way, or discriminates it as something that takes the best from each and transcends and includes them in a real way. Actually, he does this in a large way through symbol. Chiefly, I think he is a living symbol. He embodies this archetype of like a trickster guru. Oh yes, there are three ways, but mine is a secret fourth thing. He kind of lived out this principle, this elevating this like that hypnagogic jerk when your chair tips back and you jump forward, this holy bewilderment where all of your body is marshaled to presence, because suddenly my car's not parked in the parking spot I thought it was. Whoa, like, oh shit. Oh no, it's right there. Okay, never mind. This cultivation of that pattern at all scales is the thing that allows us to get comfortable with that fright. He understood these liminal spaces as the only thing that can catalyze shifts in otherwise. I park in the same parking spot every day, and I go in and I go back to my car, and I go in and I go back to my car again and again and again until all of your experience just fades as filled in. I know I can jump across topics, but I'm remembering a specific memory from a Roald Dahl book. Maybe it's not Roald Dahl, but it's the Phantom Tollbooth, and there's a city of people who go so focused to work, always looking down at the see this about line. I hope I didn't miss you saying goodbye, but people who are so intent on where they're going that the buildings themselves begin to fade from existence because nobody is paying attention to them. That there is no awareness being exchanged, there's no relationship established. Gurdjieff's approach to this holy bewilderment of this, like, shocking our systems into like waking up into like waking from a dream into real life is an embodiment of the koan, the Zen koan. Like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? There is no right answer. You are to chase after an answer that can't be found. He sought to embody this unattainable answer. He was notoriously inscrutable. He would share his writings with his students, and if his top students were, oh yes, I'm following you, that's genius, Gurdjieff. Oh, okay, and he would go back and embed it deeper. He would hide it further. He's like, no, it's too easy. There are two examples that stand out here. There is, I'm going to read this one parable here because it's, nope, actually, I will do that in a moment instead. He lived in a priory with his students that he would, from an outsider's perspective, you might say torment them. He would have constantly changing routines. You might come to breakfast one morning and be 30 minutes late. Everyone's almost finished. You might come to breakfast the next morning a little earlier and find that you're 2 hours early. You might be the only person who wasn't informed that the meetings switched rooms and are in the other wing of the house. You come into the room and there's no one there. He would direct, he believed in a lot of physical cooperative work as opportunities for self-witnessing. He assigned some people to different teams. He'd say, okay, you go and build a path over between those trees. And then you walk over to the other foreman. Okay, you go and build a garden between those trees. Well, eventually these teams were like, no, hang on, Gurdjieff told me this. I know what he said. Are you going to surrender to the opposing force? Are you going to aggress it? Are you going to seek a compromise? Why, when, by what means? These conflicts allow us the opportunity to cultivate our own patterns so that we can begin to recognize them and move through them with a greater degree of fluency, with more choice and agency. Like I said, Gurdjieff recognized that this was essential. This is a necessary empty space into which new things unfold. These conflicts and disparities are essential. He really pushed, he called this self-remembering. Far from the self-emptying of kenosis, he taught that we have many eyes. There are hundreds of impulses. I earlier put my keys right here, and I now am looking for my keys over there. I was going to go to bed at 9 p.m. I was going to go to bed at midnight, and so on. There are these constant emergent eyes. He uses a metaphor of, or a parable of the master's house and the servants. He describes a large house where the master is absent, leaving servants in charge who have forgotten their duties and the master's impending return. This house has many rooms serving different functions, but the servants neglect these purposes, misusing rooms and resources. Instead of maintaining the estate properly, they sleep at their posts. They abandon essential tasks. They fight among themselves. They steal from the house. Without proper management, the household begins to fall into disarray, operating far below its potential. The servants become so absorbed in their petty conflicts and personal indulgences that they forget their true purpose is to serve the master and maintain the house, leaving it unprepared for the master's return. This represents our condition with the house of the human organism, our full embodied will being our absent master, and our various servants representing all these chaotic impulses. Gurdjieff again leverages symbol to help us navigate this. He uses this same tripartite sort of system to discriminate the eyes associated with our heart, the eyes associated with our mind, the eyes associated with our sensing, our moving, our intuition, our body, our gut. And, discriminating hundreds of impulses is a pretty advanced sort of presence. So we can at least begin to say, okay, my heart wants one thing and my head wants another. And we can discriminate what those things are separately, allowing them to be separate. We can have two different things at once. This is a uniquely human capacity, potentially, that we have this multiple perspectives at once. We are enabled through this to produce like a productive tension. The practice I'm going to have us do in just a few minutes is a way to begin to break through the self-symbolized patterns that we've fallen into. You know, we got used to having breakfast at 9:30, got used to having breakfast, and now something happened, and we can't have our breakfast when we wanted it. Well, abstain from repeating myself too much, but there is a sense of a well-harmonized self. He uses another metaphor, another set of symbols to help us narrativize and navigate things. He uses a metaphor of a carriage and horses with a driver and the master inside the carriage. If the horses are not healthy, your emotions are not aligned with each other and yoked correctly, you're all this force, this powerful, like equine, like propulsive beauty is gone to waste. If you don't take care of and maintain the carriage, if it's falling apart, if you're not taking care of your body, you know, the horses are just going to be dragging this like thing that won't help them at all. If your driver is drunk and asleep, your mind is distracted, if he's playing Candy Crush on his phone, he's not going to be ensuring that the horses are subject to the overall master's will, your will. For you are not your carriage, your body. You are not your horses, your emotions. You are not your driver, your mind. You are the emergent unification of them. Now, I'll go through one more bullet before transitioning to the breakout. I'll draw a parallel here between external disruption and internal awareness. The more profound the external disruption, I reach for my pen on the right side of my book, but oh, it's on the left side. Minor disruption. I walk into what I thought was a regular business deal, and now I'm about to die. It's a major disruption. A regular drug deal, whatever. Like I forgot to say business instead. But if I walk in, you know, there are these drastic shifts in the scale, and all of them create liminality. But the more profound the external disruption, the greater the shadow that's cast between our, like, I was going to go get a pedicure later, and now I'm going to die. Shit. That really ruins my day. The more powerful we feel this fear, the more our tried and true patterns, we reach for what is familiar to us. In you know, the tiger jumps out and we crouch. Maybe a different move would have been good, but we're practiced at avoiding, doing whatever, and our body acts to protect us. But by pushing ourselves to maintain present through these difficult uncertainties, we develop a sort of martial art of rolling with these punches. We learn what it's like to take a fall when we're pushed over, rather than investing all of our energy in staying upright. We learn that if we're falling, we may dive and use the momentum to our advantage. We can remain in that space where the body screams to get away from the terrible free fall. You don't want to dive, you don't want to fall, but if you're falling, dive, create a beautiful roll out of it. In this breakout session, which I will give people the opportunity to self-select out of, we're going to do something that I learned from the diamond approach, or the Ridwan school. It's associated with the Enneagram, whose component symbols you see here. It's called diamond inquiry, and it's actually, as far as I'm aware, unintentionally mirroring a particular type of contemplative practice that Gurdjieff originated. It is a way that we breathe into all three of our centers at once to say, like, what's going on with me right now? And not reaching for, well, I know where I am. I'm in a Zoom call. I'm here. I'm listening to this thing. I know I'm part of the plan. We go deeper past the words to the emotions of like, oh, I'm feeling anxious. I'm here giving a talk, but there's a deeper truth. I'm here giving a talk and I'm scared that I'm going to look foolish. There's a deeper truth than that fear. There is a tension in my shoulders. There is tightness in my feet from sitting Indian style. There's by rooting these movements, these motions in our body, these emotions, these expressive motions, and aligning all three of our centers in this way and not stopping at the head, we can allow the emergence of authentic sharing, authentic self-context, self-remembering. I'll describe the breakout and then I'll give the opportunity to self-select out. It's going to be a 20-minute breakout, and we're going to have, it'll be 10 minutes where you will be invited to begin a sentence, a share with, I feel uncertain when, and fill in the blank. I feel uncertain when I'm giving my first ever talk at Limicon. And then if I were doing this practice with Danielle, she might say, or she would say, thank you, signaling that it is now my space to be received in. I feel uncertain when to go deeper that because I already knew I have a story, like I'm uncertain in this moment. What does uncertainty feel like for me? Where do I feel that? I feel uncertain when I need help at a self-checkout and the person's talking to someone else, but they don't seem to be that busy. So I'm feeling uncertain if I should interrupt. By engaging this iterative process, we can try to excavate and exhaust our typical narratives, going into further flung spaces where I feel uncertain when I want my parents to be the perfect people that I am still attached to them being. Like I was prepared to follow that up with an admission that was sort of contrived, like a recollection of an organic share, but it became organic as I was sharing it. I was like, I am actually bummed that my parents aren't perfect. It does, like, it is, if you can like remain with that, it is like there's so much grief to feel and to allow to move through you. If this is something that you don't want to participate in, you are invited to either drop and come back in 20 minutes. You can stay in the main session. I'll ask Danielle, if you want to practice with me and open, you can. Otherwise, if you want to decline your first dibs, I'll ask for, I'll allow someone else to volunteer. And I'll just witness this for both the recording and anyone else who feels just like dipping their toes in the water rather than jumping in with someone. If you didn't leave yet, goodbye. Yeah, does anyone not want to be sorted into a breakout room with someone else? I'll give a few last instructive notes before shoving you in there, but looks like Nia's going to opt out. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. Danielle, do you want to be sorted into, or you want to stay here?
Yeah, I'm not going to do a breakout room, but
Perfect.
I have created them.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Yeah, is auto one-on-one?
Yeah. And I'm
Perfect.
just making some.
And just drop Nia out of one.
Yeah.
And some particular instructions, some counterintuitive instructions. If you are receiving someone's share, the invitation is for you to remain present with yourself, to self-remember yourself, to be fully present with them and see how you're receiving it. And specifically, try to avoid expressing negative reactions to shares, but also positive reactions. We want to allow a blank canvas for our inquirer to be in contact with the empty space of your lack of reaction, that liminal space of, oh, I told a joke and they're not laughing. What? Oh, I expect people to laugh when I tell jokes. Where we're doing a service. Not everyone feels this way, but I feel mean when I am suppressing my positive reactions, but it is a service to them. So, and if you find yourself having trouble doing that, no worries. That's just more things for you to notice. If there's any questions, I hate being dropped into a breakout room, not feeling like I quite understand. Definitely invite you, speak up. There's probably at least twice as many people who speak up who won't speak up about their concerns. So
We just doing what I feel uncertain about or mixing it up?
or yeah, I feel uncertain when,
Okay.
and by beginning that I feel uncertain when, you can kind of branch out from the ways that you've, in however many years long you've lived, you got some idea of what makes you feel uncertain. Go through that, go into what things you didn't know made you feel uncertain. And I will see you guys back here in just over 20 minutes. Danielle, is it possible for you to adjust it to be like 23 minutes or something? Just to appreciate it. And then we'll kick you in there right now then.
And then Josh will be in here with you.
Perfect. And Nia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, perfect. And then Josh or Nia or Danielle, you declined, right? Practicing? Got it. Josh or Nia, did you want to practice? Otherwise, I can just, sure, you say? You want to unmute?
Sure.
Perfect. All right. Would you like to inquire first, or would you like to receive my inquiry first?
Um, you can go first. Yeah.
All right. I feel uncertain every time I move. And then
Thank
you
you
would
for sharing. Yeah.
say, yeah, whatever, thank you, yeah.
Mhm.
I feel uncertain when I have multiple tabs open and I feel like they each have something that is worth continuing.
Thank you for expressing that.
I feel uncertain when I feel an impulse to correct participation in a practice I'm only just beginning to learn to facilitate, and I am unsure if correcting someone is missing the point.
Thank you for sharing.
I feel uncertain when I am in a space of new sexual romantic tension.
Thank you for sharing.
I have a narrative of feeling uncertain with I'm breaking my inquiry format a little bit for the recording to say that I feel like, oh, I feel uncertain when I'm trying to figure out how Lego pieces fit together, but I discriminated in myself. I through my practice, I know that that's a pretty mental based layer. So I'm trying to think of trying to find that hypnagogic jerk sensation in my memory or in my imagination even. And does my body feel uncertain? I feel uncertain when in a high place.
Thank you for sharing.
I feel uncertain when I am going to compete with a car for crosswalk space as to whether taking the initiative or not is the more eudaimonic, harmonious path.
It is appreciated for you to put those thoughts out.
Hello, Alex. We're in the middle of a breakout session. I am modeling it with Nia here for the people who self-selected out and for the recording. Currently repeating, I feel uncertain when.
Would Alex and Josh like to go into a room?
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. If you'd like to move into to do the breakout, is that a thumbs up yes or? Cool, perfect. So yeah, Alex, would you like to receive a quick primer and Josh, you want me to give it to him, or do you want to catch him up in the breakout room?
I'm uncertain what you're asking me.
Sure, I'll just catch Alex up in a practice. One of you will say, I feel uncertain when, and then try to find.
Oh, you're asking, yeah, okay. I'm no longer uncertain what you're asking. It's all
Cool.
good.
Cool. Throw him in a breakout room. I'm going to beam my voice in to everyone else to switch. Go another minute longer to maintain balance between you guys if you like another minute or two, and that'll be half for you guys. Okay. I feel uncertain when I do my laundry.
Thank you for sharing.
I feel uncertain when I am faced with trying to cook food that I've never cooked before.
We're still listening to you. Thank you for sharing with us.
I feel uncertain with money.
You are listened to.
I say this because I know you and I know you can believe me for my literal words. If you would like to, you can just say thank you if it's more comfortable, or if you are straining.
It's okay.
So yeah, just continue to follow that, but I will add for the benefit of the recording for people who want to maybe try this with your partner, your sibling, your spouse, your parent. Um, the a good attractor to gravitate towards is a more flat affect, though there is no wrong way as a reflection of there being no absolute way. So feel free to play with and evolve these to your liking, but I feel uncertain with expressing myself in ways that retain a sense of meaningful authenticity or even integrity, but especially beauty that is still able to bring the sort of presence that I want to bring to people. And that's it, yeah.
Thank you.
I feel overwhelmed. I feel uncertain when I'm overwhelmed. Will you please be more aggressive about cutting off my silences?
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
I am uncertain when I want to break my own fucking stupid rules that I just make for myself, and I don't know how to, like, not just intuiting that you're not going to say thank you fast as I wanted to, and just and it's hard because I
Yeah.
don't feel free. Give me a second to change my voice.
Appreciate that thought, though.
Go ahead and finish your share and then switch. Maybe we went to center here before switching. Hello. Please.
It's my turn.
Mhm.
All right. The phrase would be, I feel uncertain, right?
Mhm. Uncertain when.
I feel uncertain when I speak in public settings.
Thank you. Give me one moment. Hey, Jim, we are in the middle of a breakout practice. I will just have you stand by a witness and I'll catch you up after. Thank you, Dan.
I feel uncertain when I meet new people who I know have different beliefs than mine.
Thank you.
I feel uncertain when I experience situations that are plagued with uncertainty and a lack of control.
Thank you.
I feel uncertain when I evaluate my own ability to complete tasks.
Thank you.
I feel uncertain when I paint because I don't know if the outcome will be good or remotely close to what I desire.
Thank you.
I feel uncertain when I go to the grocery store candy aisle and I can figure out what to get. My brother tells me to hurry along, but I can't decide, and it's awful.
Thank you.
I feel uncertain when I see a lot of pain in other people, and I feel like it is not within the threshold of my ability to help.
Thank you.
I feel uncertain when I am tasked to do jobs involving technology because people expect me to be good at them and I'm not. Well, or I tend not to be.
Thank you.
I feel uncertain when I go outside.
Thank you. I feel uncertain thinking about the state of the world. Thank you.
I feel uncertain about connection and the nature of human beings and establishing relationships with others.
Thank you.
I feel uncertain when trying to ideate my self-identity.
Thank you.
I feel uncertain about myself when there are things I struggle to understand, as in concepts.
Thank you.
This feels very relieving, but also a little bit tension inducing. I feel uncertain when others disagree with me.
Thank you.
I feel uncertain when I see my grandparents doing tasks that they refuse to ask me for help with when I know I could help them.
Thank you. Give me one moment. I'm going to broadcast. Go ahead and finish this share, and then you have 30 seconds until the 60-second timer. See if you can't spend 30 seconds of that in silence before joining. How was that for you?
A little nerve-wracking, not gonna lie.
Actually, hold that thought. I'm going to see if you can't. Hey, Jim, are you there?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. I'm going to give you the rapid download of what just happened. We went through Gurdjieff, the person, his attitude towards his students as a trickster guru, and inducing liminal spaces to bring greater freedom and choice. This was a breakout practice. You kind of got the gist of what the essence was. The goal was to exhaust our historical narratives, the kind of ready-made ideas, the kind of ready-made ideas that we have, like, oh, I know when I'm feeling certain, to sort of like, I know the second answer, the second most biggest reason why I feel certain. I know the third, fourth, fifth, sixth. I stop having ready-made answers. I start having to be forced into going into new territory, into uncertainty. And I'll continue speaking about the practice in just a few moments as everyone returns. Welcome back, Earl. Good to see you. I appreciate you joining. All right, welcome back, everyone. Does 2 or 3 people want to share? No one needs to, but was that surprising for anyone or powerful, maybe?
This is baby's first Limicon sesh, and so I appreciate it. I found it beautiful on the vulnerability and super connective and validating.
Thank you. Anyone else before we move on to the second part? I want to leave a chunk of time for the open discussion too. You have no one else. Nia, you were about to, do you want to speak in front of everyone or no?
Yeah, it's
Sure.
all right. Well, to me, that exercise felt a little nerve-wracking in the sense that it's difficult to come to face some of the concepts we sometimes have not so consciously considered. So I found it very releasing to be able to articulate some of those feelings and thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you. To return to this as a sort of psychotechnology, this practice I found to be really powerful. The very first time I participated in it, I immediately found myself saying things that I didn't know I knew about myself. And I was like, this is a powerful paradigm. I share certain trickster qualities with Gurdjieff. I have trickster energy with my friends, but it's an immature form, a form that often ends up being incidentally violent. And I really appreciate this practice for the self-contained nature. I'm not transitively enlightening you. I'm just holding space for you to dive only as deep into yourself as you are ready to go. It's sort of beautifully self-limiting in that sense, that you can enlighten yourself in those 10 minutes if you like, or you can refuse to see your obvious patterns if you're not ready. And there's no one here going to be trying to push you around into spaces that you're not emergently wanting to move into. And I find that really beautiful as a person who is really oriented towards controlling other people. This is, I'm going to transition. We first talked about Gurdjieff, the man. I'm going to try to keep this max 10 minutes. So my first time timing out how long things take me to get through. We talked about Gurdjieff, the man, his personal relationship with his students. For the second period, I'll kind of throw in this sort of non sequitur I should have mentioned at the beginning. I tried to design this in a way where it's sort of oscillating between emergence and emanation, where we have this opening liminal period, and then we have we're emergent, and then eminent, where I'm giving a presentation. We have a emergence practice, and now I'm about to have a more eminent presentation again before the final emergence, in this sort of always in transit, always going somewhere, always becoming something else, liminality. The second period here is the macro scale. It's a Gurdjieff is adjacent to, if not directly within, the lineage for Hermeticism, for alchemy. The Enneagram is a deeply alchemical symbol. One of the most powerful maxims in Hermeticism is as above, so below, and as below, so above. I don't want to misquote the rest, so I'll leave it there. But as we move from the personal Gurdjieff, I want to move more to the societal, and see the way that this abrupt thing of, oh, I thought the meeting was here, and now, or I thought breakfast was at this time, and now I missed my breakfast. That's a stark shock. That's at the personal level, but at the societal level, you also have these shocks. Gurdjieff was emergent at a time of great liminality of his era. The advent of mechanization and particularly in Russia, it's the end of Tsarist Russia. The Russian revolutions are occurring. The Bolsheviks are about to take power. World War I is just about to break. Darwin dealt a lethal blow to God in a way, and Nietzsche called time in the morgue for God, I guess. There's still these vestiges as Victorian era is like, oh, well, stable society, things are great. And then the Great War breaks. And people are like, what the fuck? I thought it was a straight spiral all the way to heaven. Like, unprecedented since the Peloponnesian times. Death as a proportion of the total number of humans on the globe, millions dead. The naive optimism, the man who invented the Gatling gun thought, oh, this will save lives. I can now, instead of 10 men with rifles, I can send in one man with a Gatling gun, and then we just the one-on-one instead of 10 on 10. Won't this be great for humanity? It didn't work out like that. There is a profound cultural, collective, sort of conscious liminality that emerges when I thought breakfast was at this time. I thought things were always just going to get better. And now I'm here and things are falling apart. I thought we were coming into a new golden age, but like, this is terrible. Europe is in shambles. We're supposed to be like evolved. This is Theoden from Lord of the Rings witnessing the magnitude of Sauron's evil. What can men do against such reckless hate? I'm emotionally lubricated from my inquiry session. I feel this. It's Jesus of Nazareth on the cross. Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. Like, my God, why have you forsaken me? And like, when I reach for my pen on the right side of my book and it's on the left side, it's like there is a micro heartbreak of like, oh, I thought I was of right intention, but I am a broken thing that doesn't know which side of the book my fucking pen's on. And when we're in this liminality, it creates the disparity, creates these voices in us calling out, this isn't right. I should be reaching for my pen. I should be reaching over here. I don't like showing up late to work. I should go to bed earlier so I can show up on time. I don't like when millions of people, my brothers and my sisters and my parents and my neighbors die. I want peace. And there's a threshold that how much disparity, how much distance can you tolerate? And when you cross it, it's It's when the student is ready, the master appears. There surely have been many men such as Gurdjieff throughout history, for which there were no need. The Gurdjieff enters into a period where people need exactly what he offers, and so the system naturally rewards that, and it propagates. This sense of something's wrong, voices are crying out in me, what are they saying, is happening in 2025. There are voices crying out. What are they saying? What do they need? How can we reconcile the different eyes, the many servants of this human project, of the master that we wish to serve, of humanity, of a eudaimonic world, of a beautiful place, of a safe place, of a joyful place, of something that's beautiful. Give me a moment to clip out a paragraph or two of this here. Yeah, these are as dramatic. These moments are as dramatic as a crucifixion and as banal as swearing. You left your keys right there. You could have sworn. The West in particular, this needed to be a narrative you agree with, but I believe the West is in a sort of position of reckoning. We've sort of subsisted. If you've seen the movie The Substance, there is this dynamic in the narrative where this girl splits off from herself and is able to act in ways where the other person sustains the consequences. You know, there's this sort of like, you know, first world privilege and this third world sort of like, oh, fuck them. Piper is sort of coming to pay of this, you know, we can no longer just send all of our pollution to India or what have you. There is a sort of reckoning of, wow, these violences that we as like, or I'm American, like these violences we perpetrated are just becoming declassified. We're just beginning to like reckon with that in ourselves. They're by integrity in this way requires looking at what we don't want to see. If we always hide behind this narrative of American exceptionalism, of you know, I forget who it was, but that proclaimed that basically physics was just about wrapped up just before Einstein. Like, we just got some loose ends, just some loose ends. And Einstein was like, it's this thread. Let me pull on it, see what happens. By wanting to believe of ourselves as having arrived, we close ourselves off to how much further we could still journey, how much more beauty we could encounter. We hide behind these symbols, and their masks become our prison bars. But we can reorient them. They are just tools. They are no more plowshares than they are swords. We can use this language. We can use language of our own invention. We can use symbols of our own invention. We can construct them personally and collectively as liberating structures, which themselves liberate other bound structures as a sort of propagating, beautiful, emergent, transient, evolving order. So I want to open now, only 20 instead of 30 I was aiming for. Pretty close. Where do we see liminality suppressed? Where do we see decaying, stagnant structures? Maybe we see like a twilight of a golden age. This can be a country. This can be a department at your job. Where do you see too much liminality in the world? Where has the tension ceased to be a productive tension and has turned into destructive violence? You know, the Israel-Palestine is a charged, but a clear example. No matter what else is the case, there is violence happening because the gulf is too wide. How can we use symbols to navigate such a gulf of liminality? How can we begin to find commonality? How can we begin to establish bonds and bonds that secure but don't bind? I guess you could say. It's incredibly difficult on the collective or the personal level when the gulf is so wide, when you are a 5-year-old on the diving board, and that's fucking scary. You don't want to jump off. Everything in your body is screaming, survive. How can we gain the wisdom to step into that with courage and have faith that whatever, the best thing that could have happened is the only thing that will happen. And feel free to toss those out completely. This is explicitly an emergent space, so I will shut up. I will be available for questions at noon, but here on I'd like to give space for people to sort of find their own way. How's that landing in your guys' body? If you don't have any verbal thoughts, what are you feeling? What's happening with you guys?
If I'm understanding right, I think one of the questions you mentioned was where in our culture situation is liminality suppressed and pushed aside. What came to mind was the idea of being in between jobs. It's common, but there seems to be a lot of shame around that, and like knowing exactly what is the next thing. And I think a lot of people with that pressure to define themselves when they're actually in a dissolution space, that is a disservice actually to everyone. So that comes to mind as something that culturally I hope that we're retraining without everyone becoming like something that like a coach or like, so, just what is the middle space that you can be in as you're redefining. I think the pressure is a little less than it used to be, but in uncertain times, I think we need to give some grace for that and people in those situations.
I said I'd be free at noon. I meant top of the hour for time zones.
I appreciate your bringing that up, Chelsea. I really appreciate it. It's almost like a message came through the window to say, Brett, just make a note of this, because I'm in this place and asking myself, should I be here or should I jump out of here? Or do I have a right to be here? Do I have a right to really figure this out? Or should I be jumping back into a system that's already crashing but needs maybe another couple people for a few more years? And I know they're heading down toward the wall anyway, so they don't know yet, so they're still hiring people. But anyway, I appreciated your taking in that direction.
Jim, if you're raising your hand, feel free to just jump in.
Yeah. We don't quite know what the world needs of us yet. I mean, we have some glimpses. I deeply sense the need for community. I sense the need for grieving.
Maybe a free fall of belonging.
And so the liminal space, the space between spaces, is kind of like a grieving time. we're not quite done grieving what we had or what we thought we were, where we thought we were going that turned out to be wrong. We're still grieving all that. I think there's going to be a long grieving. The more I open myself to it, the more I realize there are layers to it. And so it becomes ever more challenging to know how to respond to the world as far as having occupation within it, having a clear direction of this is how I will serve, this is how I'll be needed. We get glimpses, but not broad visions, I think, because so much is in transition now. So when I sat in on your session, Rian, with Nyakshu, did I say that right? Nyakshu?
Nia is fine.
Nia, thank you, Nia. That pulling back the layers of disguise and trying to find authenticity with ourselves and realizing that we are lost. We're in a lost time. And it's okay to wander for a bit before we attach onto something.
Like you saying, pull back. Like I said, I'm very inclined to doing things, but I find it really sort of rewarding wisdom to pull back constraints to allow things to happen.
Yeah, I'm not inclined to build something that will not serve anymore. And so there's this pause, you know, that we could take it to simple things like, you know, when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. Great, but now what? Now what? Okay, so I stopped this. And so it's very hard to hold space, just like meditation is very hard to do. It's very hard to be alone with myself. It's hard to be alone with my grief, with my failure. It's hard to be present with myself. I want to do something. I want to distract myself constantly. And so that's the work, it seems, is to learn to be present and to learn to not distract. And once I do that, things become clearer. I was thinking on grief last night, meditating on grief. And I thought, you know, Jim, why don't you go down to the police office tomorrow and just make an appointment with the police chief and just see if you could have a little space there in the police department to just listen to people that might need to be heard. Maybe the police down there need to have somebody that's standing by to see them and hear them and even hold them.
That's
They have to they have to respond to everything that's every trauma that's happening around us. They have to respond to everything, and yet if they don't handle it right, we just really come down hard on them. And boy, the amount of trauma that must be built up there, that like somebody has to show up to clean up the mess, right? There's a fucking mess going on in this world, and somebody's got to show up. And are we holding space for those people who have to show up? The fire department still has to show up. The cops still have to show up. I have the luxury of being able to sit back and go, wait. But other people have to dive in. And I felt like, boy, if I'm given this space to hold space for myself, I really need to use it to hold space for people who have to show up to this mess. And anyhow, that was just one thing that occurred to me.
That's beautiful and inspirational. It makes me. I live right near a police station, and I'm really oriented toward that sort of immediate service. It's especially interesting. You said it, and I imagined immediately going in and speaking to maybe inmates or something, but speaking to the police subverted my thing, and I had my own sort of liminal, like, oh, like that. I didn't even think of that thing. I mean, and it's really both sides are the emergent systemic violence that we collectively have instantiated. That, and I think it's something I found very meaningful to notice, that much in the same way as, through, let's say, some sort of I always try to speak like bipartisanly, but like, there's people who are kept down in some way, and then they get pushed down by the crude policing institution. But it's our allowance of that disparity between subcultures in our nation, in my American nation, that causes we. I'll shortcut to the point. The point is that, like, by requiring the police to like handle this problem that we created, we're making them do violence by requiring it societally, so that we can have like a safe McDonald's drive-through. and that mirrors the way that, like, when you other part of yourself, you now coerce yourself into complicity with perpetrating violence on yourself. You both become victim and like perpetrator to yourself in a sort of needless, clumsy attempt to resolve that liminality. Sorry, I didn't pull back as well as I should have. Josh, please speak if you heard.
Given the topic, I just wanted to share a story.
Please.
So that door used to be open nearly 24/7 because I like the breeze. And about probably a month ago, I got mugged in my own living room. I had my computer and my phone stolen as somebody crept up behind there and did that to me. Anyway, I chased them out and they were gone. And so I went up, there's a kind of hill up there. And I said to, well, the first guy was on a scooter. He went up and down the hill looking for guys with my laptop, which I thought was, ever so helpful. And while he was doing that, I came across another guy who was parked in the street, classic drug dealer kind of move, just waiting around, who owned a cafe up on the corner. And so I asked him, have you seen anybody run past with a laptop? And he's like, hung up his phone, and I need to sort this out, mate, and put phone down. So this guy gave me a lift up to the cop shop, left me there, and said, I'm going to call around and, talk to my cousins because they're everywhere, basically. Lo and behold, the cops just took all the details, just all the details, like absolutely everything. No progress, of course. But this guy comes back an hour later while I'm still at the police station and goes, I'm going to get your laptop, give me 15 minutes. And so off he goes again. It takes him about an hour to come back rather than the 15 minutes. But lo and behold, he comes back with my laptop going, yeah, my cousin's caught him. They were trying to flake, junkies were trying to flake it down at this road, which is a known spot. And so they got my laptop back. And so
Fuck yeah.
what came to mind there was like, God, like oh, well, yeah, well, first of all, amazing local service, just like the community resilience support within the local neighborhood is basically, we don't want this happening in our neighborhood. Just trespassing into somebody's home is not on. Even if I am a drug dealer, I'm going to sort this out. Was
Josh,
basically
quick, are you comfortable sharing your locality or like what kind of place you live in?
yeah, it's Alcantara, Lisbon.
Okay, nice.
And yeah, ever since then, every time, it's like I've made a new friend in the neighborhood as well. Is like I'll be walking down to the shop or I'll be walking up somewhere to grab some dinner. Every now and then, this guy who helped me out will pass by and he'll like screech up in the car, you know, slam on the brakes after recognizing me and go out of his way to, you know, basically make me feel welcome within my neighborhood, which is, you know, from his own perspective. I was like, oh, well, this guy's had something happen to him here, and we want to make sure that he feels good here. So I'm going to go out of my way to, you know, just check in with him, see if he wants to, how he's doing and whatnot as he passes, because he's like, I don't know how to put it. He's the local drug dealer. I suppose that's important that, that the community's safe enough for that, you know.
I'll say I am not sure if the room will automatically close. I don't normally host Zoom stuff or anything, but if it doesn't, I will remain here and happy to continue being here, and we'll take questions in like 5 minutes or something too about the actual talk. We'll just note about what you said, Josh. I really love when I've lived in more crime-ridden areas. There is a natural systemic emergence of neighborly support systems. A lot of that type of shit gets handled by people in the neighborhood because they are sort of like, yeah,
well, they don't want the cops swarming them half the time as well.
Mhm.
Jim,
Josh, you said you went through this whole experience, but the door's still closed behind you.
yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm not keeping that open, unfortunately. You know, I learned my lesson.
Do you discriminate any lasting effects in your body? Because I know it is kind of common for people to like identify their home as like an
No,
extension of it. Okay, nice. That's good. I would feel
sadly,
very violated.
the lasting effect is the door has to be closed now.
Yeah. Is anybody wanting to specifically engage me and with his time crushed? Because I want to make sure I make myself available in that way. Otherwise,
I wanted to ask some question following up on this idea of the grieving period that we're in, because and there have been some other calls earlier this week, but just a kind of a general idea that, you know, ideas lying around. I don't know if you've ever heard this expression by Milton Friedman, you know, ideas lying around when there's chaos, when there's a crisis, ideas lying around or what are going to be implemented. You know, and so the idea that we're in this crisis moment, we're in this liminal space, and who actually is serving ideas and which ideas will fill up once the crisis kind of appears. And I'm just kind of curious about this idea of putting up, somehow finding ways to bring more imaginaries to the Overton windows, because we're in these, like, we're in a very sort of, I call it a dangerous space because we see the personalities, we see them now, what kind of personalities are running things, and we know what their ideas are. We just have to read Project 2025, and they think that's the right future. And so this moment of grieving and kind of waiting, but also being a participant in producing new ideas, and bringing them into the fray is kind of what I'm curious about. I think on these sessions we've talked about things like this already.
I want to crystallize that moment and say, as people begin to drop off, thank you all so much for coming. This was a really cool opportunity for me. Just this morning, as I was like restructuring some things and thinking about my talk, I was just encountering so much insight that came from teaching, basically. And it's really beautiful. It's something that I was really scared to do. And well, whenever I get like all emotionally like loosened now, I'm just like ready to cry. But it's I really feel that sort of like, I feel like imposter syndrome saying like a teacher blessed by students, but like, yeah, you gave me the opportunity just by listening to me to do that. And that's really powerful. And it's a really great gift. I appreciate you guys. I put in the chat that I am going to fix this in the next hour or two, but I'm trying to have more memorable emails. rian.red will be set up at some point, and email I@rianred will reach me in case coordinate in the future. I'm a very unorganized person, but would love to be a part of anything you guys are building, or just generally be a part of the community. So Brett, will you echo your last thought so we can restore it?
Well, just
thank you.
Idea about the active generation of ideas and imaginaries now at this moment when we can see a very limited range of imaginaries or
imaginaries?
Well, just ways of seeing that are
okay, like lenses, like.
Yeah, Brett, if I can jump in here quickly. I think like Christianity swept across Europe and got rid of all like the Celtic, Druidic types of ideologies, right? And those no longer exist, and it's very hard to find that. When colonizers colonized South America and Central America, they got rid of those ideologies of the Mayan belief systems, and they replaced it with religion and Christianity and Catholicism. And so I think that's the power of these belief systems. And like right now, what we're seeing with Project 2025, that comes from, for example, Curtis Yarvin. And I think Curtis Yarvin got it from someone else before him. And Peter Thiel has been reading Curtis Yarvin and Elon Musk and the others, the technocrats, and right. And so that has taken hold. And what we're seeing now is kind of the crystallization of all of that blogging and all of that ideology now coming up front. And so where do ideas come from? Well, for example, now we see Bernie Sanders and AOC out doing this tour, which is fantastic. And they're getting some traction. What I still perceive about their tour is kind of like it's the against oligarchy. And I think eventually we need to move beyond that and not just be against something, but come up with a positive vision and something that's more powerful than what Curtis Yarvin and this monarchy kind of vision has been, right? And so but the idea is out there. It's like we don't own our own ideas. I think that's the thing. There's no like genius that's going to come up with an idea. The idea is out there to tap into. And so through several practices, you can start to tap into these ideas, and they come to life through communities. And this is why communities are so important, because you bring the idea to life, you bounce it off other people, and you start to form it, and it becomes an egregore. It becomes its own being it becomes its own type of archetype with its own life, right? And we carry together that idea and put it in place.
A thimble.
That's what I feel. Like Mary Shelley, like she was, how old was she when she wrote Frankenstein?
Old.
She was like 18.
Look at
She was like 18 years old. She was young. She
Oh.
like downloaded Frankenstein and put it into a book. Like, where did she get that from? You know, it was at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, and there was like Blavatsky and Gurdjieff and these other people. And Mary Shelley somehow downloaded that and brought into a book, and Frankenstein became this kind of archetype of the Industrial Revolution in my, I think. Yeah.
100%. I've seen a lot of just doesn't really sell it if I say beautiful analysis, but just sort of like interpretive paradigms of like interpreting art in their context, see how it's a response to cultural sentiments, to historical events. I have a really huge, like 6 foot long puzzle of Picasso's Guernica. Just this like expression, so that same like World War pain of like coping with it through these things. Like Godzilla in Japan. This is
Alex, I'd love to carry this further and just, you know, the Overton window, you know, the place where political possibilities live. This is kind of what I'm wondering about, is the transition from a kind of, you used the word egregore or an ecotone, a kind of what's countercultural, sort of, it's on the edges, and I guess that's where I would characterize where we are right now, right? And how does that idea that you describe, that's living in a community, or ideas living in a community, how does that become part of the Overton window so that it could be picked up by people like Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie, or, you know, and go away from this oppositional frame that's still very wedded in neoliberalism? Does that make sense what I'm asking? I mean, I feel like the leap to the Overton window is going to be important if we can save this. I use the word save, if we're not going to save, but you know, if we can get an injection of something new into that Overton window so that it could become a more of a truly political possibility. That's, I guess, kind of a question I have. And Jim, I see your fingers waving.
Yeah, I really admire AOC and what Bernie are trying to do. To me, that feels really, really grand. And to me, my focus is very, very local. I mean, I'm trying to build community here where I am. I'm not ready to do some large scale global thing. I mean, it just feels like I don't even know what that looks like anymore. But I know that it's so politically charged, and I want to connect with humans on a human level, not on a political level. And so my work is about building community where I am.
Yeah. Yeah, that comes through in what you've shared in the past on other sessions. That definitely comes through.
I mean, there's a piece of this though that is potentially exponential. Like, is community scalable is the question, and I believe that it is. But I don't think that this is the kind of movement. I don't want to be a part of a movement where it's like it comes from somebody who tells me what to think. I want to arrive at it myself. I think everybody has to arrive at it for themselves. And You know, AOC is a really bright woman. She's very, very sharp, very smart, quick, and she's aware of this whole political scene behind the marble walls that I don't get to look into. And I think she's doing good work. I think she's a person of integrity. But I don't really know. I don't know for sure. I don't know firsthand, and it just feels too.
It's more about the idea space that they're playing in, and they're not really stepping out, and there's no reason that they should, because they haven't been part of these communities, right? So my question is more about the limited playbook that's now there. And so I also want to just layer on something about micro and macrocosms. I mean, we know we live in spheres, and you know, there is a macrocosm that's being played with that will affect us in the microcosm. And so I tend to ask, you know, everyone I talk to, can we only focus on the micro when so many of our traditions and our spiritual practices are kind of telling us to do that? But at some point it should ripple out into the macro, because the macro is in the hands of these people that some of you have mentioned already on these calls. But you know, we see who's in charge of the macro right now, and what they're doing, what the limited ideas they're using. And people are, of course, trying to shift that within the macro using the same limited ideas. But I guess that's kind of my question area here, and there's no answer on a Zoom like this, but I just want to put it out there as something to kind of consider, and I'm curious about, as I
If I can offer a lens into this.
Before you do, Alex, can you repeat how you understood this question for my sake? I'm curious to get a grip better on.
My understanding is that it's almost like a nihilism here. Like I want to do something, and I have my local community, but it doesn't scale, and does it really even matter? And and what's this I can. My sphere of action is in my little microcosm, and does it ripple out to the macrocosm? That's my understanding of this. And so, like, I'm not delusional here. I'm going to say something metaphysical, but it's not, I don't feel it's delusional. It's like what you're feeling yourself is also out there, and other people are feeling. And if you're feeling fear and paranoia, it's because it's out in the collective. And if you're watching news, you probably will be feeling a lot of fear and paranoia, because that is the energy that's being fed into the collective, and we're each feeling it individually. And so what are we to do? Well, let's look at the shadow. Let's look at, why am I so fearful? And what is this paranoia? And how can I now ripple out my light outwards to my friends, to my family, to my community, to the activities I participate in? And as we do that, it ripples out into the macrocosm. Like all we have to do is change ourselves, and this starts to ripple out. And we start to act with love outwards, and our friends start to respond to us with love and to each other with love. And that's how it ripples out. So I still feel a little bit despondent and angry at what's happening. And I feel it's unjust. Like, why am I born now? Like, couldn't I have been born like in a better time when this is not happening? And I almost feel like a victim of my time. Like, oh my God, like how long is this going to last? Is this going to be a decade or a couple decades like this? But then I remind myself, like, wow, I must be really strong to have been born at this time. I must be really strong. And by the way, my grandparents were born during a world war. Like, how strong were they? And like, maybe there's a world war coming up, but I have that strength because I was born to look at this and to deal with it. And wow, my consciousness is going to grow so much through this. And isn't it incredible that I already see rays of hope? Like I see Bernie and AOC, I see Pete Buttigieg, but not only them, I see like a solar punk, and I see like these positive visions of the future, and I see Game B, and I see like Schmachtenberger on his corner trying to figure things out, and like these lovely people, you know, and the lovely people at Limicon, and like, wow, I see these rays of hope. So it's not all hopeless. And the more I act locally, the more I get tuned into other rays of hope and connect with those things as well. So you see, I don't feel it's delusional to think this way and to think that when we change ourselves, we help to change the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Great.
mean, it's this notion that we have to be out up on some kind of grand stage, some kind of grand tour. You know, my tour right now that I'm doing right now is I got a stack of cards, just little cards. I took a picture of a tree out in our front yard and got a bunch of cards. And I write like 2 love letters a day to people. Just send them love, you know, and that's my activism right now.
I can imagine, Jim, one conversation you had with one police officer could eminently plausibly have saved someone's life.
Maybe many people's. You know, and maybe by talking to there's 6, 8 people, 7, 8 people in here. And what if you did that?
Like I said, the odds that I was going to do that before this call were nil.
Right. And now it's in our collective consciousness.
It's inspiration. You have become a symbol that now other people can take on and inhabit and play with themselves. Maybe I don't go to the police station, maybe I go to a different sort of community thing, but I definitely felt like that's a good idea. Why didn't I think of that? Like I would like to do something that feels that kind of beautiful to me. Just doing that
Show up.
Sets a fire.
Just show up. I'm totally uncertified. I'm you know, whatever, but
Just some guy.
I'm here to listen and not judge. And just listen and help heal.
Mm.
And I think that is the divine work of so some of this is a leap of faith, Brett. I have to have faith that if I'm coming from love and that if I can spread my love, then it will grow. And what place did Gandhi come from when and he was out weaving, you know, he was out in the middle of nowhere just meditating and influencing.
I think maybe because I come from the academic world and the publishing world and, you know, the world of ideas, maybe that's why I have a sense of maybe there's another space to play in and bridge to. And I think it came up in a kind of astrological session earlier. Bridge was a term kind of that applied to my chart. So, so I'm thinking about it in those terms. I think Gandhi was an attorney. Gandhi understood the law. He was playing at a very high level administratively. Although he went to the beach and he wore his traditional garment, he took the lawyer's uniform off that he got at Oxford or Cambridge or wherever he went to school. So I do want to just layer that on. He was playing in a couple different levels, including the law. So that's kind of another layer. Maybe that's something that I want to entertain a little more now, as I sort of sense, you know. Anyway, that's enough.
Yeah. For you, Brett, Jim, and Alex, I'm curious if in these sorts of discussions you identify like, oh, what that person's doing, I don't feel identified with that, sort of like it almost like it seems clearest maybe to Brett and Jim. Brett, you seem more naturally oriented towards a more systemic view. Jim, you seem more naturally oriented toward a more like, you know, brothers in arms, sort of like my guy right next to me sort of view. I think there's a real way that our experiences, our natures, whatever you want to call them, orient ourselves to be in a way where, you know, I'm less emotional than I am mental. That gives me an object that I can pursue, a symbol that I can consciously cultivate in myself. But it's also the case that I don't think that there's a sense like where I'm not fated to be like the world's shining heart. You know, maybe I'm more oriented towards being like the world's shining mind or something. But it's, you know, I think there's a real way where Brett, you might be able to imagine like neighborly action can change the world, or like Jim, you could organize, you know, a societal movement of talking to police officers or what have you, while at the same time recognizing that like your place is maybe not in Washington, Jim, or like Brett, maybe you're not supposed to be like tilling a field. There's a sort of just an interesting dynamic duality that I find productive to play with. I'm curious to poke in the Kyrene and Earl to see if anything's coming up for them, if they're experiencing the liminality otherwise.
I'm going to leave my video off just because my computer is having trouble with everything today. So I've been listening, and I'm hoping that you can actually hear me at this point.
Yeah.
It's been choppy. Okay. Yeah, I love this conversation. I love a lot of the conversations I find myself in during Limicon, and it's just been amazing the things that I've thought about that I hadn't thought about before, and the way things have just seemed to kind of come together for me. So yeah, I don't know that I really have anything to contribute other than I see all of your beautiful energy and I appreciate it, and I feel more hope than I have in a very long time.
I would be interested to hear from you more about your experience of things coming together. What was it like before, during, after, maybe?
Before, I think I was mostly just I could see all the cracks and things going bad, and nobody seemed in my world, in my little world, nobody seemed to be listening or caring that that was the case. And just over the past couple of years, it's like, okay, there are people out there that are, you know, working on this. And yes, we don't have an answer yet. And yes, it could take some time, but not all is lost. So I guess I'm not sure if that's what I'm answering your question. Is that what you were asking?
Sure. I'm especially curious that in between state where you before it was happening and now it's done happening, this shift for you. Do you have any sense particular to the transforming itself, the liminality?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I've been kind of headed in this direction. And part of it is I was mad at the world. I saw a mess, and so I couldn't see beyond my own anger. Even though it didn't come out as anger, I think for most people, they didn't see it. But inside, I could feel the anger. It was tearing me up. And I felt like nobody was listening. And that was really, I just kind of pulled away. And that's my go-to move. When I don't know what to do, I just pull away. And so I've been kind of sitting on my own for a while, metaphorically speaking. And yeah, finding people that are like the people that I found here has been incredibly for me, even on a personal level. Actually very much on a personal level, but also in the, okay, you know what? I knew I wasn't alone, but I didn't know how many people were out there, and I didn't know them because I, you know, never met them because in my little world they didn't exist. And now that my world's opened up, yeah, and I can't really tell you too much about the in-between because I don't remember it specifically. It was kind of, I mean, I'm sure that there was a between, and I'm sure it lasted probably, you know, a year or two, but
Sounds like
I
a
couldn't really
powerful
give you,
experience.
Yeah, yeah, it just kind of all blended in together. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
Mm.
And
I
I think
heard
that
you.
yeah, I think that Brett is right that we're going to have to be looking at different things, but I also think that Jim is right in the, hey, this is community, this is what I can do here, and that is going to ripple out whether I see it or not.
Oh yeah. I heard you mention something interesting about a tendency to pull back. I think you said. That's the sort of language I look for when I am looking for like fertile ground for a sort of well-worn groove to try to put a penny on the tracks of and see if you can get more familiarity with what that pull away feels like as it shows up for you. I imagine that might be fruitful.
Yeah, actually, it's something that I've always known, but I never really looked at too much until recently. And in the Enneagram, I don't know if you'll recognize the triad, but I'm a 5-wing 4 with a strong 9. So that is the withdrawal trifecta, basically. And that is, yeah, that's how I deal with things. Even if I don't withdraw physically, I withdraw into my head.
Yeah.
And it's been nice being able to come out of my head and realize that there are other people out there and that community doesn't suck. It just is, I need to find the right people.
Yeah. I've been in a very similar situation over the last similar time span, actually. Having that enneagrammatic language I found to be really powerful for sort of naming and organizing the territory of our experience so that I'm like, oh, I'm doing the 5-wing 4 thing again. I'm doing the 9 thing again. Do I want
Yeah.
to do the 5-wing 4 thing again right now? Do I want to do the 9 thing again right now? Or am I just doing it?
Right. Yeah, it's been very powerful for me. I don't know that it's good for everyone, but it's been a system that has opened my eyes not only to who I am, because that part I kind of figured out, but how to, I hate to say combat who I am, but how to regulate who I am in a
Yeah.
better way that produces what I want. Yeah.
Mm.
You know, protest is not contest. And Karine, I'm so glad that you're falling back in love with the world.
Mm.
I want to be collaborating in a world with people who are in love with the world. I don't want to be collaborating with people who want to see the world broken. You know, I was really shocked when I heard about like cuts to the forest department, and I was like, when was the last time I went to a national park though? Maybe I ought to go to a national park. Maybe that's the protest, is to go and, I remember that the mail, the US Postal Service was under assault in the last term of President Trump.
Yeah. I'm going to end the call in 6 minutes.
Oh, well, that's part of the reason why I'm sending people love letters, because I'm like, oh yeah, I really do like getting actual mail from the people that care about me. There's like something very moving about getting somebody taking the time to write me a love letter or thank you note or something simple. And wow, you took the time out for me to do that. And
that physical object then not to
yeah. So I mean,
becomes a symbol for them.
Yeah, go to a library, go to go mail a letter, go on a hike in a forest, and and go visit a cop and be like, hey,
Here's
how
my
you doing, man? And just build community and build love again, because I mean, we're in a very dark time, and the darker it gets, the brighter distant light shines. It's like we have these dark skies out here because we don't have a lot of light pollution, but we can see stars from further and further away. Guys, in dark times, this is when you can shine the brightest. And people can see you from far, far away doing that shining. So go out there and just shine. Fall in love with the world again. That is the true protest. Like, make this world worth loving again. Make this world worth fighting for again. And we do that by being in love with this world.
What you said is really powerful in terms of just this sort of self-correcting dynamic I tried to gesture to in my talk, is that the worse things are, the more that your act of kindness goes. If everyone's having a pretty good day, then you going, hey, what's up? It's nice. It's a nice thing on a nice day. But if someone's having a really shitty day and you say, hey, what's up? That changes the course of their day potentially. So like the more depressed you feel about how bad things are, the more you're like, you can recognize that any action you take is amplified proportionally to in a world devoid of kindness. A simple act of kindness is revolutionary.
Yeah, but it goes farther than that. Like, those are beautiful words, Ryan and Jim. But there's a reason for it. The reason is that now we're at the end. I speak with a lot of certainty, but think about this. We're at the end stage of a system that had certain values. The values of the system were what? They were competition, productivity, optimization, individualism, consumerism, growth at all costs, domination over nature, domination over other people, wealth.
It seemed more emergent of the system than the values to me.
Wealth inequality. This emerged in this system that we're living in. These values emerged, and people in Miami, for example, are very materialistic, superficial, individualistic. They like to flaunt their wealth. Like, we're at the end stage of this logic. The beings in the system, the Moloch in the system is very powerful now, right? And so what Jim is showing is that, like, intuitively, Jim is showing, and Ryan, what you just said, intuitively, is that the way you combat Moloch, the way you combat these thought forms of like productivity and competition and individualism, the way you do it is through love, is through acts of kindness, is through community, is through connection, is by talking to your neighbor, by being kind to your family, by doing these things. That's how you start to defeat Moloch and these powerful forces within the system, right? So I think that's why this is so important. How does that land?
One of my teachers used to always ask me, how big is your God? How big is your God?
How big is what?
How big is your God?
Oh yeah, I was just having that same thought process earlier, seeing someone sort of engage in some like rhetorical distortion because it seemed like they felt like their values weren't strong enough to resist. Like, if your values are these things that I know them to be, these beautiful things, like, they're powerful enough to like hold on to and to continue to push for. Like, they will push through, they will survive. Before this call ends, I want to give another final opportunity to Nia, if you had any closing thoughts or anything that you wanted to share.
Well, just really finalizing to say that really resonated with me. And well, I think I still feel uncertain on where particularly the movement should go or what these solutions can be. I think a way for me to practice this in my own life is involvement in the community and even having the opportunity to exercise thought in these kinds of spaces. So I'm really grateful to you all to listen to what you have to say. Yeah.
It's a way of being close enough to someone else to have a question mark of your relationship that can be meaningfully answered, to enter into the commons and have all this emergent liminality for these beautiful things to happen. These 5 people in this call right now are just through proximity creating this field that things come into. It's really beautiful to have this talk. Thank you guys again, Jim and Alex and Gary and Nia. Have a great rest of your session, and rest of Limicon.